Here are three important factors in creativity: people, process, and product. The most important one is the process. First, you have to create the right person through education with a creative mind. Second, you have to create the right process to have people engaged in the innovation process. Third, you need to find the right problem to work on. Human beings can survive and prosper largely depending on the creativity they have. If you identify and assess the creativity of a finished product, it is taken as a proxy for the creativity of the person who produced such a product. Therefore, a creative product should be surprising, original, beautiful, and useful. People should have factors necessary for genius, ability, and the right mindset. You should improve to imitate and change insight, look from new perspectives, and innovatively create something with imagination to expand conceptual spaces. In Western countries, women are becoming more and more reluctant to give birth to babies. However, the male's status in society remains as strong as it ever has in recent years. The birth rates increased during the 20th century, but it started to decrease over these last 2 decades. In the year 2000, as an example, the birth rate remained at around 1%. There are even some negative birth rates in other countries. Birth rates dropped to the lowest points that have never been seen in society. It also has impacts on males in the society, especially young males, and it might have some connection with unemployment rates as well. So we were founded just over 10 years ago when I was in the Royal Academy, a museum in the center of London, with my 3 children at the Aztec exhibition. I don't know if any of you saw it. I had an older child and 2 younger children, twins, strapped in a pushchair, and one of my children, 3 years old, shouted, and I've never denied, he shouted, "Monster, monster," at this statue, which looked just like a monster, had snakes for hair, a big beak for a nose. And I thought, this is fantastic. I've got a 3-year-old that's appreciating art. How good can it get? So I bent down and I said, yes, it looks just like a monster. And at that moment, a room warden came over, a gallery assistant came over, and said we were being too noisy and threw us out to the wrong family. I was, at that time, a journalist with the Guardian newspaper, and 2 days later wrote a big piece in the Guardian about being thrown out of the Royal Academy. What was really interesting was by the end of that day, we had had at the paper over 500 emails from other families saying, museums aren't working for us. Let's try and make it work. So that's what we did. In The Guardian, we set up a campaign. We called it the Kids in Museums campaign, but it didn't really exist. It was just a few pages. We ran loads of stories on it. I began touring the country, talking about how to make your museum family friendly. In the early years of ATM machines, there were many complaints with the ATMs. The machine was programmed to allow a customer to collect their money first and then take their card. However, this made many people forget their cards, and it was a worrying issue because anyone could have access to one's bank account. Now, in the UK, the ATM machines have been reprogrammed so that customers will take their card first and then collect their money. As a result, it will be less likely for them to forget the money, since that was the main reason for them to use an ATM. However, people sometimes still forget to take their money. It is more catastrophic to lose your card because it can access your bank account. Thermodynamics is the science of the flow of heat. So thermo is heat, and dynamic is the motion of heat. Thermodynamics was developed largely beginning in the 1800s at the time of the Industrial Revolution. So, taming of steel, the beginning of generating power by burning fossil fuels, the beginning with the problems with CO2 and global warming. In fact, it's interesting to note that the first calculation on the impact of the CO2 on climate was done in the late 1800s. by Arrhenius. Beginning of a generation of power-moving heat from fossil fuels to generating energy, locomotives, etc. So he calculated what would happen to this burning of fossil fuels, and he decided in his calculation, he basically got the calculation right, by the way, but it came out that in 2,000 years from the time that he did the calculations, humans would be in trouble.
If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more PTE-related content. Don't forget to leave a comment below letting you know what you think or if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I will meet you soon, our next video.